Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video, and today I'm setting up my husband's bullet journal for August with a fun little whales in space theme. This may seem random to you, but to me and to my husband as sci-fi nerds, whales in space or other sea creatures in space is just a very common sci-fi trope for whatever reason. When I think about whales or other sea creatures in space, I think about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. I think about Doctor Who, I think about Star Trek, so many instances. And I don't know, I just kind of love it. The idea of, especially whales, you know, a huge sea creature who lives in the depths of the ocean, and the ocean is so vast and unknowable. We've explored such a small percentage of it. It feels very comparable to the vastness of space, that we just have so little understanding of what's out there. And I just kind of love that. So that's the theme I decided to do this month. This is a theme I came up with on my own and surprised my husband with, and he was pretty into it, so that's good. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever read or watched something that had whales in space. I would love to consume more content with this trope. I'm sure it exists. So I'm starting by painting some of these planets, and I'm doing that base layer first, which is going to be the sort of main color, and trying to add some variety in color, some depth, so that they look spherical. My general technique for this is to have a bit of a darker outline, and then to fill a crescent moon shaped half of the sphere with a darker color, and have the other side be lighter and have a gradual transition between the two. Once that first layer is dry, I'm gonna go in and add a little bit more depth and some details. And on most of the planets, the way I'm adding detail is just adding a bunch of slightly curved horizontal lines. I wanted the whale to be swimming in front of a big moon, so I'm working on that now, starting with a light wash of gray and then adding a bunch of darker details in a sort of splotchy, random fashion to try to evoke craters. I'm working with more water on the moon and the planets here than I usually would in a bullet journal, just because I really want that variety of color and the irregularity when it dries. But even working with more water, I'm being very conscious of how much I'm using, because while the art journal of paper can hold up to a lot, it is not watercolor paper, so you still have to be aware of how much water you have on your brush and on the page at any given time. Now that the base has dried here, I'm adding a ring around this planet. So the planet itself is sort of a rusty brownish orange, and I wanted the ring to be a bit of a lighter orange, basically a peach. And I also used that same color to add a bit of a highlight to the planet as well. I also wanted the planet on the opposite page, which is the calendar page, to have a ring. So I'm using that same peachy color here. And once I had the first ring, I felt like it was missing something. So I actually decided to add a second thinner ring. Now it's finally time to start work on my whale, and I'm very excited about it. And let me know in the comments down below what I should name this whale. I'm conflicted. I had a couple ideas. Big Boy was one of them, I know. Very creative. Let me know down below though if you have a better name for this whale, because I feel like he or she or they deserve a really great name, you know? Maybe Herbert. let me know. So I'm starting with a basic outline here. As always, all of the supplies I'm using will be linked in the description box down below. So if you're looking for the specific colors I used, they're all down there. As always, I'm using my Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors and my Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache here. I want the whale to be quite dark because I want it to evoke the night sky. The underside of the mouth of the whale, though, is going to be a lighter blue and have some gray lines for detail. So I left that to the end and used the same blue, just with more water and less pigment on the brush to get a lighter color. And you can see I go back in and darken it just a little bit more, so it's not quite so big of a contrast. While the whale dries, I'm finishing up the moon here, and it ended up not being quite circular, and I realized it should also come out at the bottom of the whale. So I'm just adding a little bit more to it to try to get more of a full circle, more of a full sphere look, and also adding more dark spots here and there since watercolor dries lighter. I'm also giving our little whale buddy an eyeball because, you know, they deserve it. And then I'm using some gray paint and the tip of my brush to create some parallel lines here that curve with the shape of the mouth. Adding the header on both the cover page and the calendar page, just using my favorite monoline cursive and a black fine liner. And then I'm also going in and adding the calendar here, just keeping it nice and simple. My husband is in an A5 size journal, and I create spaces in the calendar that are 3 spaces wide and 5 spaces high. And so far this has been a good size for him. I used to make them a little bit larger, but he didn't quite need that much space, and it looked a little overwhelming on the page. So visually, this slightly smaller calendar just fits a little nicer on the page, and it's still more than enough space for him, so it's a win-win. Now that our whale is completely dry, I'm going in with my gold watercolor from Finetech. This is in Arabic gold, and my teeny tiniest brush to add a bajillion stars all across the darkest blue on the whale, as well as just scattered around the planets here. I'm doing a combination of dots of different sizes and also my favorite sort of sparkly cross stars, and a couple little different types of stars within the body of the whale, including one little shooting star or comet there just for fun. I'm also adding a smattering of stars around the header on the calendar page. Flipping over to the next spread, which is going to be the first page of his notes pages. As I've explained a bajillion times now, he uses his notes pages essentially as his daily log, just to jot down anything he needs to throughout the month. So I just create a pretty page to start him off, and then he goes off running using his bullet journal. So for this page, I didn't want to take up too much space with the art, but I did want to tie in our space whale. So for this one, I thought it'd be cool to just have the tail coming up from the bottom with a bit of a celestial vibe going on behind it. So you'll see how I'm doing that here, just starting with the tail. And again, I'm kind of using a similar technique here to what I used to paint the moon on the cover page, starting with the outline and then bringing in varying blobby shapes from the outline towards the center, keeping the darkest areas on the outside. And then once I'm sort of happy with the general placement, I'm going to go in with a damp brush to kind of blend those colors together. While that dries, I'm just adding the header again with my monoline cursive, and then I'm grabbing a larger brush and I'm going to use a bunch of this gold watercolor to create a semicircle around the tail, being very careful to paint around the tail and trying to get this as opaque as possible. It's not too hard here because I did activate the paint and let it sit with water on it for quite a while before I started painting with it, so it could really soften up and release that pigment. Now I'm adding a couple curved lines around this to emulate drawings of orbits, again with my gold watercolor and with my super duper fine brush. And I'm also adding some little mini rings and dots and stars on the orbit lines themselves, as well as in and around the orbit lines and the sun, again just to tie in the cover page and the calendar page, this very celestial vibe. I'm really on the gold train this month for August. If you didn't see my plan with me in my bullet journal, I'll link that in the cards and in the description box. I did an olive theme in my bullet journal and I used a lot of gold there too, so I'm loving it. which is probably not a surprise to any of you at this point. So here's a little flip through of our couple spreads here. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I love how adorable the whale is and just the sort of light-hearted, spacey, celestial vibes. Very into it. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. I hope it gave you some inspiration if you too are a fan of the space whales sci-fi trope. Let me know down below, again, if you have any recommendations for media that contains this trope so I can get more of my fix. And if you have a suggestion for this whale's name, leave it down below. Before I go, I want to take a second to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons, Laura, Betsy, Kelsey, Pam, and Jess. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.